Welcome. I'm truly grateful to have you here. Please, make yourself comfortable and take your time. This story was crafted with care, dedication, and deep respect for your attention. I hope it brings you joy, reflection, and perhaps even a touch of nostalgia. Once again, thank you for sharing a moment of your day with me. The year is 1347. You wake up in the middle of a medieval winter. The air bites with a sharpness that seems to flay your skin, pulling warmth from your very bones. You feel the rough wool of your tunic against your cheek, a futile barrier against the pervasive cold seeping into the straw mattress beneath you. A dull ache throbs in your temples, a familiar companion these days. It's still dark, but a faint, icy light barely outlines the crude timber beams of the hut. Then, you hear it. A sound that rips through the pre-dawn quiet, echoing off the frosted landscape. Thwack, thwack, thwack. It's distant at first, a metallic, percussive rhythm that vibrates more in your teeth than your ears. You push yourself up, the straw rustling loudly in the silence that follows each strike. Your breath plumes in the frigid air, a ghost of your unease. Pwhack. It's closer now, sharper, undeniably a hammer striking metal against wood. Each blow resonates deep within your chest, a primal beat that quickens your pulse. You swing your legs off the mattress, your bare feet meeting the packed earth floor, instantly numbed by the cold. Shivering, you pull on your rough boots, the leather stiff and unyielding. The sound calls to you, a relentless summons that demands attention. You fumble for your cloak, its coarse fabric, a meager comfort, and push aside the heavy hide covering the doorway. Outside, the world is a tableau of gray and white. A thin layer of frost crunches under your boots as you step out. The air smells of damp earth, wood smoke, and something else, a metallic tang that hints at raw iron and exertion. Following the relentless rhythm, you move towards the village square. The sound grows louder, more urgent, no longer just a noise but a force. Thwack! You flinch as the hammer connects. A visceral shock that travels up through the ground, through your soles, and into your bones. You round the corner of the miller's cottage, and there it is. The scene unfolds under the grim light of a smoldering torch, held aloft by a stoic man. In the center of the square, a colossal timber cross lies half-finished on the frozen ground. Two burly men, their faces grim, swing heavy hammers with methodical, brutal force. Sparks fly as iron nails, thick as your thumb, are driven deep into the ancient wood. Each blow makes the timber shudder, sending vibrations across the square. You feel it in your teeth, a deep, unsettling thrum. Other villagers have gathered, their faces etched with a mixture of fear and morbid fascination. Their breath, like yours, hangs in the air. No one speaks. Only the relentless thwack, thwack, thwack breaks the silence, each strike a guttural cry of raw power. You watch a nail bend slightly, refusing to yield, and one of the men lets out a grunt of effort before bringing his hammer down with renewed, furious intensity. The nail finally gives, sinking with a final, sickening crunch of splitting wood. You see the splintered edges, where the wood protests, the sheer force required to bind these massive pieces together. This isn't an act of creation meant to inspire comfort or hope. It's an act of brutal construction, designed to be seen, to be understood. The very air around it feels charged with a stark, uncompromising warning. It's not meant to save you. It's meant to mark something, to display something. A heavy, undeniable weight presses on you, a chill far deeper than the winter air. If this story resonates with you, please like and subscribe. I'm curious, where in the world are you listening from? And what time is it there? Share in the comments. The last resounding thwack of the hammer rattles through the frosted air. A final punctuation mark on the brutal work. You wince, feeling the impact deep in your gut, even though the blow didn't land on you. The immense timber cross now stands fully assembled, its raw, splintered wood stark against the muted winter sky. The men who built it stand back, their shoulders heaving, their faces streaked with sweat and grime. Despite the biting cold, they don't look triumphant, just weary, their gazes heavy with something unspoken. Around you, the villagers are a hushed collective gasp. A subtle shiver runs through the small crowd, not from the cold, but from a deeper unease. You can practically taste the fear in the air, thick and metallic, like the coppery scent of fresh blood. You feel the presence of the woman next to you, her arm brushing yours. She draws a sharp, involuntary breath, a sound swallowed quickly by the pervasive silence. Her eyes, wide and fixed on the cross, reflect a raw terror that mirrors your own burgeoning dread. She pulls her worn shawl tighter around her, as if warding off an invisible chill, her knuckles white. You shift your weight, your boots crunching softly on the frozen earth. Your gaze follows hers, drawn inevitably to the massive structure looming in the square. It's not just a cross, it's a declaration. The rough-hewn timbers seem to pulse with a grim energy, their sheer scale overwhelming the familiar quiet of the village. This isn't a symbol of solace or salvation you recognize. No, this feels like an instrument, a tool forged for a singular, chilling purpose. The other villagers, their faces etched with similar expressions of stark apprehension, begin to shuffle, a hesitant, almost imperceptible movement that suggests a desperate urge to flee, yet they remain rooted. You notice the baker, usually jovial, his broad face pale and drawn. He clutches the arm of his young son, pulling the boy closer, as if to shield him from the sight, yet his own eyes can't tear away from it. The blacksmith, a man of formidable strength, stands with his arms crossed, but his jaw is clenched tight, a muscle twitching beneath his beard. He knows the weight of iron, the force needed for such construction. He understands the message. A low murmur ripples through the crowd, not words, but a collective exhalation, a shared understanding settling over everyone like a shroud. You feel a prickle on your neck, the hairs rising. The cross itself isn't what truly terrifies you. It's the way everyone looks at it, the way they hold their breath, the way their bodies subtly recoil. It's the shared recognition of what it represents, a warning so profound it strips away all comfort, all hope for peace. This isn't for an offering. It's for an ending. The light begins to brighten slightly, pushing back the last vestiges of night, and the cross takes on an even more formidable presence, its dark form casting long, skeletal shadows across the square. You feel a tremor run through your own hands, a cold dread seeping into your veins. The silence isn't empty anymore. It's filled with unspoken questions, with the weight of impending doom, all communicated through the frozen faces and fear-widened eyes of the villagers. You realize, with a sickening lurch, that this assembly is a grim rehearsal, a prelude to something far more dreadful, etched deeply into the gasping crowd. It's sobering how a single object, built of wood and iron, can so powerfully silence a community, twisting collective hope into a shared, suffocating fear. A guttural grunt escapes your lips, the sound lost amidst the strained breathing of the men around you. The raw, splintered beam digs into your shoulder, its immense weight pressing down, forcing you to stoop. The rough grain of the wood chafes against your coarse tunic, then against your skin, 1,000 tiny barbs threatening to pierce through. It's not just heavy, it feels ancient, infused with a stubborn, unyielding density that seems to resist your every effort. You are one of several villagers compelled to move the massive horizontal arm of the cross from the square to the nearby hill. The ground is still frozen hard, offering little purchase for your feet as you shuffle forward, step by agonizing step. Each movement sends a jarring tremor through your body, from your straining fingers clutching the beam, up your arms, into your shoulder, and down your spine. Your muscles scream in protest, a burning ache spreading across your back and neck. You grit your teeth, tasting the metallic tang of exertion in your mouth. You glance sideways, catching the strained, crimson face of the man beside you. Sweat glistens on his brow, freezing into tiny crystals in the frigid air. His eyes are wide, fixed on the path ahead, but they hold a blankness, a kind of forced endurance. He doesn't look at you, doesn't acknowledge the shared burden, only focuses on the single demanding task of lifting and moving. His breath comes in ragged gasps, puffs of vapor blooming and vanishing in the cold. The air around you is thick with the scent of raw wood, damp earth, and human effort. A sour smell of sweat and fear. The silence, save for the grunts and heavy footfalls, is profound. No one speaks. No one complains. The sheer magnitude of the task, the unspoken command, silences all dissent. You feel the constant threat of the beam slipping, crushing your fingers, or sending you tumbling onto the unforgiving ground. Your grip tightens, your knuckles white, aching with the effort. As you ascend the gentle slope of the hill, the weight seems to multiply with each upward step. You feel a sharp splinter pierce your palm, a stinging protest from the wood itself. You don't dare release your grip to pull it out. The beam demands your full, unwavering attention, your complete physical submission. Every fiber of your being is focused on this singular, arduous act of transport. It feels less like carrying wood, and more like carrying a burden of stone, a monumental weight of inevitable consequence. You see the outlines of other villagers already at the summit, standing motionless, watching your slow, painful ascent. Their shadows stretch long and thin in the growing daylight, silent witnesses to your struggle. You perceive their solemnity, their shared understanding of the grim purpose, echoing the fear you felt earlier in the square. This isn't a task born of communal joy or shared celebration. This is an imposition, a heavy, physical manifestation of a terrible decree. The raw wood feels cold against your cheek as you turn your head slightly, struggling for breath. The sheer, unrelenting pressure a constant, physical warning. It's astonishing how the simple act of carrying something can strip away all thought, leaving only the raw, visceral experience of strain and the inescapable weight of what you're holding. You finally heave the massive crossbeam into place, feeling the sudden, exhilarating release of weight as it settles with a dull thud against its upright support. Your muscles twitch, screaming in protest, but the immediate relief is profound. You flex your fingers, shaking off the lingering ache, and wipe the cold sweat from your brow with the back of your hand. Your breath is still ragged, misting in the air, but the hardest physical part is over. Then, a new sensation washes over you, cutting through the fatigue and the smell of raw wood and exertion. It's a smell, yes, but not like anything natural. It's heavy, almost cloying. A rich and complex aroma that feels entirely out of place in this bleak rural landscape. You catch hints of roasted meats, sweet spices, fine wine, and something else. A subtle, almost floral perfume, utterly alien to the damp earth and wood smoke you're accustomed to. It's the stench of imperial power, concentrated and opulent, announcing itself before you even see its source. You follow the scent, turning your head slowly, your gaze sweeping across the small crowd of villagers. They too seem to have noticed. Their shoulders, previously slumped with weariness, now stiffen, and their heads turn in unison, their expressions shifting from exhaustion to a wary alertness. Their eyes narrow, not in fear exactly, but in a kind of resigned recognition. You see the subtle tightening around their mouths, the slight tilt of their chins, a silent acknowledgement of an unwelcome but expected presence. And there they are, at the edge of the assembly, standing apart from the common folk, are figures whose attire instantly marks them as different. You see rich, dark cloaks, finely woven and trimmed, their fabric catching the pale winter light in a way your coarse wool never could. Leather boots, polished to a gleam, sink barely an inch into the muddy ground. You notice the glint of metal, not the utilitarian iron of a hammer or a plow, but decorative silver and bronze, catching the light from chains or buckles. They move with an unhurried, almost languid grace, a stark contrast to the rough, stumbling movements of the villagers. One figure, taller than the rest, stands at the forefront. Though his features are indistinct at this distance, you can feel the weight of his gaze, a palpable presence that seems to sweep over the crowd, assessing, judging. You feel a sudden urge to shrink, to make yourself smaller, less noticeable, as if his eyes could pierce through your very thoughts. A cold, analytical stillness radiates from them. They are here not to participate, not to mourn, but to observe, to oversee. You sense the absolute authority in their posture, the unquestionable right they feel to be here, to impose this grim spectacle upon your village. The subtle tension in the air around them is almost visible, a shimmering barrier between their world and yours. They don't belong, and yet they command. The air around them still carries that potent, unnatural scent, a sharp reminder of their distance, their privilege, and their ultimate power. You realize this cross, this warning, isn't just a local affair. It's a message from far beyond your village, driven by an unseen hand, enforced by the very people who now stand, aloof and perfumed, watching you. This isn't your warning. It's theirs. It's unsettling how the mere presence of certain people, defined by their scent and their clothes, can instantly reshape a moment, turning shared physical exhaustion into a stark, uncomfortable hierarchy of power. The light begins to drain from the sky, taking with it the last warmth of the day. A damp chill rises from the frozen ground, seeping into the soles of your boots and climbing steadily through your body. The air smells sharper now, tinged with the metallic scent of approaching night and a lingering faint trace of the opulent perfume from earlier. You pull your coarse cloak tighter, feeling the rough wool scratch against your neck, a small comfort against the encroaching cold. You feel a shadow pass over you, not from a fleeting cloud but something darker, whiter. You tilt your head back, your eyes scanning the darkening expanse above. There it is, high above. A large bird circles, its wings barely moving, catching the last pale light as it glides effortlessly. It's a scavenger, a vulture, a dark, patient blot against the fading gray. You watch its slow, deliberate turns, its silhouette unnervingly still as it observes the world below. Its presence feels less like a natural occurrence and more like an extension of the grim mood settling over the hill. Around you, the villagers are already dispersing, their footsteps muffled on the damp earth. They move with a quiet haste, their shoulders hunched against the cold and something else, an unseen pressure. No one looks at the vulture directly, but you sense their awareness of its presence, of what it signifies. Their faces, already weary, are now etched with a deeper anxiety, a silent understanding passing between them. They avoid each other's eyes, their gazes fixed on the path homeward, eager to escape the exposed hilltop. You stand by the newly erected cross, its massive timbers now looming even larger, darker, against the deepening twilight. The rough wood feels colder to the touch, its splinters sharper. You can still feel the ache in your muscles from carrying the beam, a persistent memory of the physical burden. The air thins around you, carrying the faint, distant sounds of doors closing in the village below. The vulture continues its slow, unblinking vigil, a dark omen etched against the darkening sky. It's a silent, patient watcher, and its shadow, though ephemeral, feels heavy, oppressive. You can almost feel its gaze, impersonal and ancient, sweeping over the scene, over you. This isn't just a bird. It's a living representation of the stark warning you felt earlier. It circles, waiting, patient. You realize that its presence here, at dusk, on this hill, watching over the raw, new cross, is no accident. It feels like an endorsement, a final, chilling punctuation mark on the day's grim work. The silence becomes profound, punctuated only by the subtle whisper of the wind through dry grasses. It's chilling, how something so natural as a bird circling can transform into such a potent symbol of dread, amplifying the silent fear that already grips a community. The last sliver of twilight clings to the horizon, painting the sky in bruised purples and grays before surrendering entirely to the inky blackness of night. A new cold settles, a deeper chill that seems to absorb all sound. You feel it first, not just the physical bite of the air, but the profound absence of noise, the usual evening murmurs of the village, the distant bleating of sheep, a dog's bark, the clatter of a pot, the quiet hum of conversation have vanished. A heavy, unnatural silence has fallen, dense and palpable, pressing in from all sides. You make your way down the hill, your boots crunching on the frozen earth, the sound unnervingly loud in the pervasive quiet. Each step feels like an intrusion, a deliberate disruption of this imposed stillness. The air still carries the faint, metallic scent of iron and raw wood from the cross, now a shadowy monolith against the faint stars. But it's the silence that truly dominates, a suffocating blanket woven from dread. You pass the first few cottages, their windows dark, devoid of the usual flickering candlelight. No light spills from cracks around doors, No welcoming warmth hints at life within. The familiar, comforting smells of cooking fires are absent, replaced by the sharp tang of frost and something else. A faint, almost imagined odor of fear clinging to the cold stone and timber. You feel a subtle quickening of your pace, an instinctive urge to reach the shelter of your own home, to disappear into the quiet like everyone else. You see a figure ahead, a neighbor, their silhouette brief and hunched against the dark. They don't look up, don't offer a greeting. Their steps hurried and light, almost tiptoeing. They slip into their dwelling without a sound, the heavy wooden door closing with a soft, deliberate click that barely ripples the profound stillness. No greetings, no shared observations about the day, no comforting exchange of human presence, just an urgent, silent retreat. This isn't the quiet of peace or sleep. It's a vigilant, held breath kind of silence. You feel a tightness in your chest, a reluctance to even draw a full breath, as if any sudden sound might shatter the fragile truce of the night and draw unwanted attention. The air itself feels weighted, charged with unspoken anxieties. It's the silence that follows a terrible proclamation, the quiet after a powerful hand has asserted its will. You arrive at your own door, fumbling with the latch, your movements slow and careful. The raw wood of the cross, erected on the hill, feels like it still stands watch, even in the darkness, its grim purpose broadcast not through sound, but through this all-encompassing quiet. The silence feels like an extension of the imperial gaze from earlier, a chilling reminder that you are not unseen, not forgotten, even in the deepest night. This is the weight of state terror, not in a shout, but in a whisper that has swallowed all other sound. It's unnerving how a vacuum of sound can be so much louder, so much more oppressive than any clamor, carrying with it the invisible burden of fear. Your hand connects with something unexpectedly cold, a sudden shock that steals your breath. It's not just cold, it's damp, a slick layer of condensation covering rough-hewn stone. You retract your fingers instinctively, a shiver running up your arm and across your shoulders. You're deep underground, the air thick with the smell of wet earth, ancient dust, and something else, a faint, lingering mustiness that hints at centuries of enclosed space. The darkness is absolute, pressing in on you, a living weight. Only the tiny, flickering flame of the tallow lamp you clutch offers any resistance, casting restless, elongated shadows that dance like phantoms on the cavern walls. Your breathing sounds unnaturally loud, each inhale and exhale echoing softly in the oppressive silence. You take another step forward, your worn boots crunching on loose gravel, the sound amplified, then swallowed by the vast, echoing void ahead. You reach out again, more deliberately this time, your palm flat against the cool, rough surface. The stone is uneven, carved by tools long forgotten, bearing the marks of a time so distant it feels like another world. It radiates a steady, penetrating cold that seeps through your tunic, a persistent chill that seems to emanate from the very earth itself. You move slowly, your hand dragging along the wall, using it as a guide through the winding, narrow passage. The air doesn't move here. It hangs heavy, stagnant, tasting of minerals and the deep, silent sleep of countless generations. Your light picks out shallow niches carved into the walls, empty now, but clearly meant for something. You imagine shapes, outlines, the silent forms that once rested here. The weight of all that forgotten history presses down, a subtle pressure on your mind, distinct from the physical cold. You feel the claustrophobia of the enclosed space, the ceiling just barely clearing your head, the walls a constant, intimate presence on either side. Each turn of the passage feels identical, a labyrinth of memory and decay. A drop of water falls, landing with a startling splash nearby, the sound reverberating, making you jump. You flinch, your heart thudding against your ribs, a primal response to the unexpected noise in such a profound quiet. You try to steady your breathing, the small flame in your hand dancing precariously. You are alone here, truly alone, surrounded by the echoes of time, by the remnants of lives lived and forgotten. The cold isn't just a temperature. It's a profound, ancient loneliness that permeates the very stone around you, a warning of ultimate oblivion. It's astonishing how places designed to contain the dead can so vividly remind the living of their own fragility, their fleeting warmth against an eternal cold. You lift the sputtering tallow lamp higher, its frail, greasy flame battling the hungry gloom. The air, though still damp and cold, now carries the faint, acrid scent of rendered fat and burning wick, a temporary warmth in this tomb-like chill. Your eyes sting slightly from the smoke, but you press on, drawn by an invisible current, deeper into the earth's silent embrace. You stop before a section of the rough-hewn wall, your fingers tracing the outline of something ancient and unfamiliar. The flickering lamplight plays tricks, making shadows leap and dance, distorting what you see. Faded carvings emerge from the stone, not of pious saints or comforting symbols, but of crude, stark images. You lean closer, your breath ghosting on the cold rock, trying to decipher the obscured narrative. The figures etched into the stone are angular, their forms elongated, almost grotesque. You see expressions of agony, mouths open in silent screams, eyes wide with terror. One figure seems to be falling, arms outstretched, not in embrace, but in a desperate, futile reach. Another is twisted, contorted, as if battling an invisible force. The sheer physicality of their suffering is visceral, almost palpable, even after centuries. This isn't a gentle sorrow. It's a raw, primal dread. But as the lamp's flame dances, swaying with your unsteady hand, the shadows shift. What was clearly a grimace of pain moments ago now seems like a solemn gaze, or a quiet plea. The falling figure briefly appears to be ascending, its outstretched arms reaching for salvation rather than slipping into an abyss. The contorted form momentarily suggests struggle against a temporary hardship, rather than eternal torment. You realize the lamplight itself is an active participant in this perception, an unwitting accomplice. It doesn't illuminate truth, it reframes it. The deep-set lines and harsh angles, originally carved to shock and warn, are softened, made ambiguous by the restless movement of the flame. The very terror, etched by ancient hands, is subtly rewritten, transformed into something more palatable, more hopeful, or at least, less definitively horrifying. You run your fingers over the carvings again, feeling the cold, uneven surface. You perceive the intent of the original sculptor, a stark, uncompromising message, a clear depiction of consequence. Yet, your own mind, influenced by the deceptive light, and perhaps by the comforting narratives you've been taught, wants to see something else, something less terrifying. You try to hold the lamp steady, to force the truth from the stone, but the flame resists, its flicker an unyielding editor of reality. The air remains heavy, with the scent of damp earth and ancient secrets. You feel a strange kind of unease, not just from the grim imagery, but from the unsettling realization that what you perceive is so easily malleable. The darkness is always there, waiting to swallow the light, to distort or erase what it reveals. This isn't just a place of the dead. It's a place where history itself is rewritten, where ancient warnings are gently, deceptively transformed. It's a peculiar kind of terror, understanding that truth isn't fixed, but can be reshaped by the frailest light, bending warnings into reassurances with a simple flicker. A cloud of incense hits you first, thick and sweet, almost cloying, permeating every corner of the vast space. It clings to your clothes, to your hair, settling in your throat with an unexpected dryness. You breathe it in, a heavy perfumed air, so unlike the damp earth and wood smoke you're used to. Your own footsteps on the polished stone floor echo back, elongated and ghostly. In the immense space, each sound amplified, then slowly, gracefully, swallowed by the soaring heights. You stand inside a newly completed stone cathedral, its fresh masonry still smelling faintly of cut rock and mortar beneath the overpowering incense. Stone arches soar impossibly high above you, disappearing into a shadowed ceiling that seems to touch the heavens. The air here is cool, a controlled, deliberate coolness, not the biting cold of winter or the damp chill of the ancient catacombs. It's a manufactured chill, designed to invoke solemnity, perhaps even a sense of the divine. Shafts of muted, colored light fall in vast patches onto the floor, painting the gray stone in hues of deep blue and crimson. These aren't the honest rays of the sun, but light filtered through expertly crafted windows high above, softened, transformed. It feels less like a natural blessing and more like a carefully orchestrated display, meant to guide your gaze upwards, always upwards, towards the distant glittering altars. Other figures move like hushed specters in the distance, their whispers swallowed by the sheer scale of the building. Their faces are upturned, gazing at the intricate carvings, the high arches, their expressions a mixture of reverence and awe, certainly subdued. No loud cries, no terrified gasps, just a pervasive, almost sacred quiet, punctuated by the soft shuffle of feet and the distant, liturgical drone of a chant, indistinct and soothing. You run your hand over a cold, smooth pillar, its surface perfectly uniform, free of the rough splinters and raw edges of the cross you helped build. This is a place of precision, of monumental effort channeled into grand design. Every detail here seems intended to elevate, to soothe, to inspire a sense of comforting wonder. The terror etched into the catacomb walls, those crude, desperate screams of suffering, could never survive in this carefully constructed grandeur. Here, any suffering is presented as beautiful, as part of a grand, comforting narrative, not a stark warning. Each sound, even a cough, is caught and stretched, becoming less distinct, less urgent. The raw clang of the hammer, the communal gasp of fear from the village square. They would be polished into something else here, something liturgical, something distant and safe. The original, harsh message of the cross, the visceral shock of its construction, seems to have been absorbed, refined, and perfumed by these towering walls, echoing into a different, more palatable truth. It's profoundly unsettling how easily the raw, brutal reality of a warning can be transformed, becoming part of an awe-inspiring spectacle where the very act of worship reshapes the meaning of suffering into something grand and almost serene. You move through the hushed grandeur of the cathedral, the lingering sweetness of the incense guiding you deeper into its heart. Your eyes, still adjusting to the muted stained glass light, are drawn forward, past the rows of polished pillars, towards a focal point at the very end of the nave. As you approach, a new kind of light emerges, not from the windows, but from an object itself, radiating a controlled, glittering brilliance. It's an icon, a crucifix, but unlike any you have ever witnessed. It stands on a raised altar of gleaming white marble, shimmering with an impossible opulence. Your gaze falls upon its surface, which isn't rough wood, but burnished gold, intricately worked into swirling patterns. And embedded within the gold, winking and flashing even in the subdued light, are countless precious stones. Deep crimson rubies, vivid green emeralds, sapphire blues that seem to hold tiny galaxies. They catch every stray beam, fracturing it into dazzling pinpricks of light that dance before your eyes. The figure upon this magnificent cross is not contorted in agony, not raw or bleeding. Instead, it is rendered with an almost serene beauty, its form idealized, perfect. A jeweled crown rests upon its head, sparkling with an ethereal glow, transforming suffering into majesty. This isn't the stark, splintered timber you helped erect on the hill, nor the grim, terror-filled carvings from the catacomb walls. This is a monument to wealth, to power, to a sacrifice so thoroughly sanitized and beautified, it feels utterly removed from its brutal origin. The air around the icon feels charged with a different kind of reverence, a hushed adoration. You see others kneel before it, their faces upturned, lost in silent prayer, their expressions reflecting awe and a kind of distant hope, rather than the raw terror you remember. They don't flinch, they don't gasp, they gaze upon this bejeweled spectacle as if it offers solace, not a warning. You feel a strange sense of disconnect, almost a physical barrier between your own memory of the cross and this radiant, untouchable object. The profound, visceral horror of the warning, meant to be etched into the very core of your being, seems to have been absorbed, refined, and adorned by these towering walls, by this glittering display. The raw clang of the hammer, the collective gasp of fear, the silent retreat of a terrified village, all of it transformed into this distant, almost serene worship. This God, presented on such a magnificent bejeweled cross, feels less like a suffering companion and more like an untouchable monarch, residing in a realm of distant splendor, utterly removed from the cold reality of human pain. The sheer opulence here feels like a deliberate act of reinterpretation, turning a warning into an object of veneration, making the divine both beautiful and profoundly distant. It's unsettling how easily the visceral horror of a sacrifice can be adorned and elevated, until its very pain becomes a symbol of power and distant majesty, rather than an urgent, close-at-hand warning. A sharp, burning ache shoots up your right leg, settling deep in your hip with a dull throb. You shift your weight, trying to ease the persistent discomfort, but it clings like a burr. You've been walking for days. The relentless rhythm of your steps, a constant companion. Your feet are a symphony of small pains. Blisters rubbed raw, arches protesting, toes cramped within stiff leather boots. Every muscle in your body feels stretched, weary, imbued with the deep-seated fatigue of a long, arduous journey. The air around you is dry and hot, a stark contrast to the medieval winter and the underground chill. It's thick with fine dust, kicked up by countless weary feet on the sun-baked path. You taste it on your tongue, a gritty, earthy flavor that coats your mouth, making your throat feel parched and scratchy. You swallow, but the dryness persists, a constant reminder of the miles already traveled and the miles still to come. The sun beats down with an unrelenting intensity, baking the ground and pressing down on your shoulders, making your worn tunic feel heavy and stifling. Ahead of you, the path winds onward, a faint, dusty ribbon disappearing into the shimmering heat haze. You are one of many, a slow, silent procession of pilgrims, all moving with the same determined, plodding pace. You can hear their soft, rhythmic shuffling, the occasional weary cough, the creak of worn leather or wood, but no conversation. Each person seems wrapped in their own pain, their own thoughts, their own quiet pilgrimage. You notice the woman in front of you, her head bowed, a hand pressed to her lower back. She doesn't look up, only continues her steady march, her focus fixed on the dusty earth before her. Your shoulders burn, a familiar ache from the meager pack you carry. The weight feels heavier with each passing hour, a collection of necessities and the intangible burden of your purpose. This isn't a comfortable journey. It's a deliberate act of penance, of seeking, a physical manifestation of an internal quest. You try to push down the nagging thought of how much further it is, how many more days of this relentless march. A small stone dislodges beneath your boot, sending a puff of dust into the air, and for a moment you falter, a sharp stab of pain reminding you of your raw heels. You regain your balance, gritting your teeth, and force yourself to keep moving. The sun dips lower, painting the horizon in fiery oranges and purples, but offering no real respite from the heat, only a change in the light. The taste of dust remains, a constant, irritating companion. You glance at the setting sun, then back at the endless path, a profound weariness settling over you. This journey feels like an endurance, a test of will and body, a pilgrimage designed not for comfort, but for transformation through hardship. And the cross you seek, the ultimate destination, feels like a distant promise, shrouded in the dust and the ache of countless miles. It's humbling how the simple acts of walking and breathing can become such profound struggles when the body is pushed to its limits, carrying not just physical weight, but the invisible burden of a soul's quest. A sudden, violent gust of wind whips around you, tearing at your cloak and snatching the breath from your lungs. It hits with the force of a physical blow, staggering you, sending a bone-deep chill instantly through your already weary body. You instinctively brace your feet wider on the crumbling path, digging your heels into the loose scree, fighting to keep upright. The air instantly drops several degrees, sharp and biting, tasting of damp earth and the distant, unseen mountains. You feel your fingers clench tighter around the rough, weathered wood of the staff you've been carrying. It's a simple piece of oak, worn smooth in places by countless hands, splintered in others, a sturdy, unassuming support for your long journey. Now it transforms into an anchor, your only connection to the ground as the wind howls past your ears, a deafening roar that threatens to tear you from your very footing. Your knuckles whiten, aching with the effort of your grip. The path ahead blurs, obscured by the swirling dust and debris the gale whips into a frenzy. You squint, trying to see, but the relentless pressure against your eyes makes them water. blurring your vision even further. Your hood, already pulled low, is ripped back, exposing your face to the biting cold. It stings, almost like 1,000 tiny needles pricking your skin, forcing you to turn your head, tucking your chin low against your chest, trying to shield yourself. You are not alone in this struggle. Around you, other pilgrims are leaning into the wind, their figures hunched, almost bowed. You see the old man ahead of you, his thin frame rocking violently, his staff plunged deep into the ground, holding him fast. A woman nearby has pulled her shawl completely over her face, shrinking into herself, a desperate attempt to find shelter where there is none. No one speaks, no one cries out. Only the unrelenting shriek of the wind fills the world, a primal, untamed force that reduces everything else to insignificance. Your muscles tense, straining against the invisible current. Every breath is an effort, the wind pushing the air back into your lungs, making your chest ache. You feel the simple, comforting solidity of the wood in your hand, its rough texture, a small, tangible reality in this chaos. It's not adorned, not beautiful, not a symbol of grand majesty. It's just a piece of wood, but it's asterisk real. It's here, in your grip, providing a meager but vital resistance against the unseen, overwhelming power. You press your cheek against its rough surface for a moment, seeking any small comfort it might offer. You realize with a stark clarity that cuts through the physical discomfort that this staff, this raw piece of wood, is a more honest, more immediate form of salvation than any jeweled icon. It offers no grand promises, no distant solace, but a present, physical anchor in the face of an immediate, unyielding threat. It's not about what it represents, but what it does for you, right now, in this howling, terrifying moment. The wind screams its indifference, but your grip on the wood holds firm. It's astonishing how in moments of raw, primal struggle, the most basic, unadorned objects can offer the most profound, most real sense of stability, cutting through all illusion. A cloying, sickeningly sweet odor hits you first, a thick wave that assaults your senses and coats the back of your throat. It's not the usual stench of medieval streets, the familiar mix of refuse, wood smoke, and damp earth. This is different, profoundly unsettling. It's a sweetness that hints at decay, like overripe fruit left too long in the sun, mingled with something metallic and faintly putrid. You instinctively draw your tunic sleeve up to your nose, but the fabric offers little protection. The scent has already permeated the very air you breathe. You walk down a narrow, cobbled street, your footsteps echoing with an eerie loudness in the unnatural quiet. The air feels heavy, oppressive, as if it's pushing down on your chest, making each breath feel shallow and insufficient. The usual bustling life of the town has vanished. Shop doors are barred, their shutters drawn tight, like eyes squeezed shut against a terrible sight. The market stalls, usually overflowing with goods and cacophony, stand empty and silent, ghostly skeletons in the pale afternoon light. Your gaze sweeps across the deserted lanes. You see a figure slumped against a wall in the distance, unmoving. A cold knot tightens in your stomach. You don't need to get closer to know. The air itself seems to carry the news, whispering its grim secrets. You feel a subtle clamminess on your skin, a rising anxiety that isn't just from the physical discomfort of the oppressive air, but from a deeper, primal fear. Every creak of a window shutter, every rustle of dry leaves, makes you flinch, your nerves strung taut. The silence is punctuated only by the occasional, distant toll of a church bell, a mournful, drawn-out sound that counts not hours, but lives. Each slow, heavy chime resonates through the still air, a somber beat to the city's grim procession. You try to listen for other sounds, a child's cry, a voice, anything familiar. But there is only this profound, terrifying quiet, thick with that persistent, sickeningly sweet smell. You stumble over a loose stone, catching yourself, and your hand instinctively goes to your throat. It feels tight, constricted. The sweet sickness in the air feels like it's permeating your very being, seeping into your lungs, pressing on your heart. It's a silent, invisible enemy, carried on the breeze, clinging to every surface, and it's turning the once vibrant pulse of the town into this haunting, motionless tableau. The warning is no longer in a physical cross on a hill, nor in ancient carvings, nor in the distant majesty of a jeweled icon. It is in the very air you inhale, an insidious, inescapable truth. It's terrifying how something so invisible, so pervasive as a scent, can carry such a potent and undeniable message of widespread, inescapable doom. The sweet sickness in the air clings to you, a heavy, invisible shroud. You pull your tunic tighter, though it offers no real defense against the pervasive dread. The deserted street stretches before you, an unnerving testament to the town's grim reality. The only sound now is the faint, mournful toll of a distant bell, its slow, deliberate rhythm measuring out lives in the suffocating silence. Your gaze falls upon a crude wooden cross leaned against the wall of a shuttered house. It's small, hastily made, its rough edges still showing the marks of an amateur's knife. No polished wood, no glittering jewels, just simple, stark timber, much like the one you helped to erect on the hill so long ago, yet infinitely smaller, more pathetic. It's meant to be a symbol of hope, a plea for divine intervention, a ward against the unseen enemy. But here, amidst the palpable fear and the stench of decay, it looks utterly impotent. You feel a flicker of anger, cold and sharp in your gut. This cross, this symbol, is supposed to offer solace, to provide a shield. Yet the houses around it are silent, their occupants either dead or dying, their doors barred against a world that offers no refuge. The very air you breathe, laden with the plague's insidious sweetness, mocks its presence. It stands there, a mute witness, incapable of stemming the tide of sickness, unable to bring comfort to the dying. Your eyes scan the street again, noting other similar crosses, some chalked on doors, others crudely fashioned from twigs and twine, tied to posts. Each one a desperate, futile gesture. No one is gathering around them, no one is praying aloud. There's no sense of communal strength or shared faith, only isolation and the quiet, terrible waiting. The fear isn't of judgment, not of a distant wrath, but of an immediate, biological assault that religious symbols seem powerless to avert. You feel a sudden, profound loneliness. The grand cathedral, with its soaring arches and jeweled icons, now seems like a distant, irrelevant dream. The terror etched in the catacombs, once softened by flickering light, now feels chillingly prescient, a stark warning utterly ignored. And the initial shock of the hammer blows on the raw cross. The very construction of a public warning feels like a futile act in the face of this overwhelming, unthinking pestilence. The small cross leans awkwardly against the wall, its shadows long and thin in the fading light. It offers no protection, no healing, no escape. It simply exists, a hollow symbol in a world consumed by an undeniable, physical horror. The cross wasn't meant to save. It was a warning we misread for centuries. And now, in the face of the Black Death, its impotence is a stark, unbearable truth that you feel deep in your bones, a truth sharper than any blade, more bitter than any sorrow. It's a harrowing realization that in the face of true, indiscriminate suffering, the grand symbols we cling to can reveal themselves as utterly powerless, their meaning stripped away by the raw force of reality. A faint, rhythmic scrape fills the frigid air, a delicate, insistent sound that cuts through the profound quiet. Scrape! 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 It's the sound of a quill, featherlight, gliding across parchment, its tip whispering across the rough surface of the vellum. You feel the cold first, an unyielding, bone-deep chill that seeps from the stone walls and the high arched windows, straight into your fingertips and toes. Your breath plumes visibly, a tiny cloud in the freezing air. You sit hunched over a heavy wooden desk in a scriptorium, the vast chamber almost entirely devoid of warmth. The air smells of old parchment, damp stone, and the subtle, earthy tang of ink. Your fingers, stiff with cold, clutch the quill, making your hand ache with a dull, persistent pain. Your eyes, strained from hours of meticulous work, are fixed on the page before you, illuminated by the feeble glow of a single tallow candle. Its tiny flame dances, casting long, wavering shadows that make the carefully drawn letters seem to shimmer and move. Around you, other scribes, cloaked and hooded, bend over their own desks, their faces obscured by shadow. They work in silent, concentrated diligence, their own quills making the same soft, rhythmic scrape. No one speaks. The only sounds are the rustle of turning pages, the occasional sniffle against the cold, and the endless, whispering scrape of ink on parchment. You feel a profound sense of isolation, even amidst these other dedicated figures. Each person is locked in their own world, engaged in the painstaking, solitary act of preserving and copying. You dip your quill into the dark inkwell, the cold ceramic chilling your fingertips. The ink is thick, slow to flow, demanding patience. As you carefully form each letter, you feel the texture of the parchment beneath your hand, its slight unevenness, the faint scent of animal hide. You are copying ancient texts, words written centuries ago, words that have been copied and recopied, passed down through generations of silent scribes in chambers just like this. The weight of this history, of this sacred duty, presses down on you, a different kind of burden than the heavy crossbeam or the omnipresent fear of plague. Your back aches, a dull, familiar companion. Your eyes burn, but you dare not stop. Each word, each sentence, is a testament to the past, a fragile link to a knowledge that might otherwise be lost. You look at the page you are working on, the elegant, flowing script, the tiny, intricate illuminations that frame the text. It's a beautiful, intricate world, crafted in silence and cold, a world built on words. The scrape of your quill continues, a quiet, persistent act of defiance against the cold and the silence, a fragile thread connecting you to those who came before and those who will come after. And you realize that the stories, the warnings, the hopes of humanity are all contained in these delicate marks, faithfully replicated, passed down, sometimes subtly altered, across the vast expanse of time. It's a peculiar kind of power, this quiet act of writing, knowing that each careful stroke of the quill holds the potential to preserve, transform, or even subtly redefine the very lessons of history. The rhythmic scrape of your quill continues, a quiet counterpoint to the profound cold in the scriptorium. Your fingers, stiff and numb, painstakingly form each letter on the parchment. The smell of ink and old vellum is a constant presence, comforting in its familiarity amidst the biting chill. You feel the rough, cool surface of the page beneath your palm, a tangible link to the words you are reproducing. Your gaze drifts from the main text to the margins, to the elaborate illuminations that frame the ancient words. Your task is not just to copy the script, but to meticulously replicate the intricate artwork that accompanies it. You carefully select a tiny brush, dipping it into a vibrant pot of vermilion, its rich, earthy scent a subtle counterpoint to the ink. Before you, rendered in vivid colors, is a depiction of the crucifixion, but this isn't the raw, splintered wood you carried, nor the grim, terror-filled carvings from the catacombs. This is an abstraction, a refined image. The cross itself is slender, almost delicate, a graceful form rather than a brutal instrument. The figure upon it, though clearly suffering, is stylized, almost elegant. Blood flows in neat artistic rivulets, a deep, symbolic crimson that barely hints at the actual mess and horror of real wounds. The body is slender, almost weightless, defying gravity, removed from the crushing weight of mortal flesh. The scene is framed by intricate golden leaves and blooming flowers, their vibrant hues a stark contrast to the agony they surround. Angels, depicted with serene faces and sweeping wings, float peacefully in the background, their presence suggesting divine comfort rather than visceral horror. The faces of the onlookers, though sorrowful, are composed, their tears like perfect pearls. There's no raw, gasping fear, no desperate confusion like you saw in the village square. Everything is carefully ordered, beautifully tragic but ultimately controlled. You perceive the deliberate artistic choices. The pain is there, yes, but it is rendered as part of a larger, grander narrative, carefully contained within the illuminated border. It's a suffering that has been elevated, made beautiful, removed from its raw, horrifying context. The physical agony, the true, messy, undeniable terror of that ancient form of execution, has been transformed into a profound, almost spiritual abstraction. It's a cross meant to inspire reverence and reflection, not gut-wrenching dread. Your brush trembles slightly as you apply a touch of gold leaf, the metallic gleam instantly transforming a simple element into something precious. You realize that in this act of illumination, the warning itself has been re-illuminated, its sharp edges smoothed, its brutal reality softened into a sacred artifice. This is how the cross, originally a brutal warning, slowly became an object of serene veneration, its agony transformed into an aesthetic. It's remarkable how the power of art, even in its most devout form, can subtly shift perception, turning an image of raw suffering into something so beautiful that its original, terrifying message is almost lost beneath layers of golden abstraction. The harsh clang of steel echoes off the stone walls, a sharp, metallic sound that vibrates through the very ground beneath your feet. You flinch, a reflex you've learned quickly in this place. The air is thick with the scent of sweat, stale leather, and something else, a coppery tang of old blood and the underlying odor of unwashed bodies. It's a raw, brutal atmosphere, utterly devoid of the sweet incense of the cathedral or the quiet chill of the scriptorium. You stand in a crowded courtyard surrounded by a jostling mass of men. They are armed, clad in worn chainmail and heavy leather, their faces grim and sunbaked. The sounds are a cacophony, the grunt of men sparring, the creak of leather armor, the dull thud of a practiced sword against a shield. It's a place of constant readiness, of simmering violence just beneath the surface. You feel the rough wool of your own simple tunic, a stark contrast to their heavy protective gear. Suddenly, a blinding glint catches your eye. It comes from a shield, leaned against a wooden post, its surface polished to a mirror shine. It's a large, round shield, utilitarian in its design, but emblazoned with a bold, unmistakable symbol, a cross. Not the raw timber of your village, nor the jeweled magnificence of the cathedral, nor the abstract art of the manuscript. This is a stark, red cross, painted with fierce simplicity on a field of white. But what truly makes you recoil is the thin, almost imperceptible line of gold paint that outlines its edges, catching the harsh sunlight, making it shimmer with an unexpected, almost celebratory brilliance. You watch as a burly crusader, his face hardened by countless battles, approaches the shield. He wears a similar, smaller cross stitched onto the breast of his tunic, faded and worn, but still clearly visible. He lifts the shield with a practiced ease, adjusting its straps, then turns, his eyes sweeping over the assembled men. There is no fear in his gaze, no hesitation, only a fierce, unwavering conviction. He sees the cross not as a warning, but as an emblem, a banner under which to fight. The glint of gold on that cross is a subtle but profound betrayal. It speaks not of sacrifice or suffering, but of glory, of conquest, of a divine sanction for violence. It's a symbol that has been utterly transformed, stripped of its original cautionary message, and repurposed into a rallying cry for battle. The rough wood, meant to evoke terror, is now an excuse for inflicting it. The agonizing suffering is now a justification for holy war. You hear the distant rhythmic drumming of a marching cadence, a deep, resonant sound that vibrates through the ground, growing steadily louder. It's a sound of purpose, of disciplined movement, of an army preparing to move. The air fills with the faint, metallic scent of sharpened steel, mingling with the sweat and the dust. You realize that the cross, meant to warn against the consequences of power, has become power itself, weaponized, burnished with the glint of gold, marching to the beat of war. It's chilling, how a symbol born of profound suffering can be so utterly reshaped, adorned, and wielded as a justification for further violence, its original message entirely eclipsed by the glint of perceived glory. The biting cold of dawn still clings to the air, making your breath plume in stark white clouds. You stand on a vast open field, the earth hard and unforgiving beneath your worn boots. Around you, thousands of men shift restlessly, the metallic clink of their chainmail, and the murmur of low voices creating a dull, continuous hum. The air smells of damp earth, nervous sweat, and the faint acrid tang of sharpened steel. A heavy sense of anticipation presses down, a coil of tension tightening in your gut. Ahead, on a makeshift platform, a robed figure stands, his voice a low, resonant rumble. You can barely make out his words over the shuffling feet and the rustle of banners, but you feel the solemnity of his presence. He speaks of divine purpose, of righteousness, of a holy quest. His sermon, though delivered with quiet conviction, feels almost fragile in this vast, restless assembly. You hear phrases like, "peace everlasting," and "sacrifice for salvation," words meant to soothe, to guide, to prepare souls for a spiritual journey. The cross emblem, visible on countless tunics and shields around you, seems to shimmer with a detached, almost ethereal meaning as he speaks. An echo of the jeweled icon in the grand cathedral, a symbol of distant, perfected suffering. You try to focus on his words, to find a sense of calm, but the tension in the air is a live thing, twitching, ready to ignite. Your hand instinctively grips the rough wooden shaft of your spear, its familiar weight, a small comfort. You glance at the man beside you, his jaw clenched, his eyes wide and fixed, not on the speaker, but on the horizon, as if expecting something terrible and glorious to erupt at any moment. Then it rips through the air, not a sudden, sharp trumpet, but a primal, guttural roar. It starts from one end of the field, a deep, collective bellow, and instantly, terrifyingly, sweeps across the entire assembly. 1,000 voices, then 10,000, merge into a single, overwhelming wave of sound. It's not human language. It's a raw, animalistic cry, stripped of all reason, filled with furious intent. It vibrates through your chest, stealing the air from your lungs, making your teeth ache. The sermon, barely heard moments before, is utterly, violently drowned out. The gentle, pious words are obliterated by this thunderous, bloodthirsty declaration. Your body stiffens, a surge of pure adrenaline electrifying every nerve. The men around you, who were just moments ago listening to talk of salvation, now straighten, their faces transformed. Their eyes harden, their hands instinctively tighten on their weapons, and they add their own voices to the colossal roar, a furious, exultant sound that shakes the very ground. The cross, painted on their shields and banners, no longer represents quiet suffering or spiritual warning. Now, it is a blazing standard, an emblem of unleashed, righteous fury. Its original message of caution, of the terrible cost of power, is entirely consumed by the deafening, all-encompassing battle cry. The sermon has been silenced, replaced by the terrifying, exhilarating promise of conquest, written in sound and steel. It's unsettling how easily the quietest, most profound warnings can be obliterated, not by argument or debate, but by the sheer visceral force of a collective, overwhelming roar. A rich, heady scent hits you the moment you step into the hall. It's a complex tapestry of aromas, roasted meats, pungent cheeses, sweet fruit tarts, and most prominently, the warm, intoxicating fragrance of spiced wine. It's a thick, almost palpable smell that seems to cling to the tapestries on the walls, to the heavy oak tables, even to the very air itself. You breathe it in, a stark contrast to the dust and cold you've known for so long, and a subtle warmth blooms in your chest. You are in a grand banqueting hall, alive with the flickering light of countless candles and the cheerful crackle of a roaring fire in a massive stone hearth. The air, though warm, feels strangely heavy, a mixture of the rich scents and the boisterous sounds, laughter, loud and uninhibited, mingles with the clatter of pewter plates and tankards, the low hum of conversation, and the lively strains of a lute and drum from a corner. It's a vibrant, almost overwhelming sensory experience after the silences and grim scenes you've witnessed. You feel the plush, crimson velvet of the curtain you brush past, its softness a surprising sensation against your coarse tunic. Your eyes sweep across the scene. Richly dressed figures, their clothes in jewel tones of blue, green, and gold, sit at long tables laden with food. Their faces are flushed with drink and merriment, their gestures expansive, their voices loud. This is a feast, a celebration, a moment of unbridled indulgence. At the head of the main table, framed by an ornate, gilded tapestry, sits a portly bishop. His robes are of the finest silk, a deep purple that catches the candlelight. A heavy gold chain, adorned with a large, polished cross, rests on his ample chest, glinting with a soft, reassuring light. He laughs, a booming, jovial sound, as he raises a silver goblet, its surface engraved with intricate patterns, to his lips. You watch the spiced wine, a dark, rich liquid, disappear down his throat. There's no sign of the raw, brutal cross from the village square here. No hint of the terror from the catacombs. No grim solemnity of the cathedral. And certainly no echo of the plague-ridden streets or the battle cries of crusaders. Here the cross he wears is a symbol of authority, of luxury, of the comfortable intertwining of earthly power and divine blessing. It's an ornament, a jewel-like badge of office, perfectly at home amidst the silver, the rich food, and the flowing wine. You feel the heat radiating from the hearth, a pleasant warmth that lulls your senses. The taste of the rich air, thick with spices and wine, fills your mouth, a sweet, almost overwhelming sensation. The laughter swells around you, a joyous, oblivious cacophony. The cross, once a stark warning, has become a silent, bejeweled companion to earthly pleasure, worn lightly by those who seem to have forgotten its origins in suffering and fear. It's astonishing how the very symbols meant to embody humility and sacrifice can become so utterly absorbed into a world of comfort and excess, their original purpose lost in the intoxicating haze of indulgence. The air around you still hangs thick with the lingering scent of spiced wine and roasted game, a heavy, rich aroma that clings to the velvet drapes and the polished wood. You feel the plush, almost springy pile of an expensive rug beneath your boots, a stark contrast to the rough earth and cold stone you've known. The warmth here is pervasive, a gentle heat radiating from the hearth, lulling your senses into a comfortable, almost complacent ease. Your eyes are drawn across the softly lit chamber to a figure seated regally in a high-backed, carved oak chair. It's a man of obvious power, perhaps the bishop from the feast, or another high-ranking dignitary. He wears a heavy robe of deep, luxurious velvet, its folds a shimmering expanse of crimson that catches the subtle light from the candelabras. As he shifts slightly, a specific detail catches your gaze, drawing your attention immediately. Resting against the rich velvet of his chest, almost sinking into its softness, is a cross. Not a simple wooden crucifix, nor the gleaming gold icon of the cathedral. This is a monument to opulence. A heavy, ornate piece crafted from what looks like solid gold, meticulously studded with large, polished gemstones. Deep emeralds gleam against rubies, their facets reflecting tiny points of light, creating a dazzling display of wealth and artistry. It's weighty, substantial, a tangible expression of immense value and status. You perceive the sheer physical weight of it, the way it presses into the velvet, creating a slight indentation. Yet, the man wearing it carries it effortlessly, almost unconsciously. His posture is relaxed, one hand resting on the armrest, the other occasionally stroking his ample belly. There's no strain, no burden. The cross, heavy with jewels and precious metal, feels like a natural extension of his luxurious attire, a declaration of his elevated position rather than a symbol of humble sacrifice. His eyes, though tired, hold a contented gleam as he sips from a delicate goblet. He doesn't look at the cross, doesn't touch it with reverence. It's simply Tolo, there, an integral part of his identity, a silent testament to his authority and his comfort. The sharp, brutal warning of the cross's origins, the raw agony, the communal fear, the solemn silence, all seem impossibly distant from this scene of opulent ease. Here, the cross has been entirely absorbed by the world it once stood in stark opposition to. You feel a strange mix of fascination and unease. The sheer beauty of the gemstones, the intricate craftsmanship, is undeniable, but this beauty feels like a shroud, meticulously draped over a truth that has been intentionally forgotten, or perhaps willfully ignored. The cross, originally a brutal lesson, has been transformed into a lavish adornment, its message sweetened and silenced by the very comfort it was meant to challenge. It's striking how a symbol meant to remind us of pain and humility can be so thoroughly transmuted by wealth and power, becoming a glittering emblem of comfort and status, its raw, visceral warning softened by the silken touch of velvet. A profound dampness immediately grips you, a clammy, pervasive chill that seems to cling to your very bones, seeping through your clothes like a cold sweat. The air is heavy, stagnant, carrying a faint, metallic odor, a smell that hints at fear, iron, and something long stagnant, like old tears and unspoken words. It's a silence so deep it almost hums, punctuated only by the drip of water somewhere far off in the darkness. You stand in a small stone chamber, its walls weeping with condensation. The flickering, weak light from a single grimy lantern hanging from the low ceiling does little to dispel the gloom, instead casting long, distorted shadows that seem to writhe in the corners. The stone floor beneath your worn boots is uneven and cold, amplifying the dampness that seems to rise from the very earth. Every surface is hard, unyielding, and profoundly uncomfortable. You feel a knot of tension tighten in your stomach. The air itself feels charged, thick with unspoken accusations and concealed pain. This is not the quiet of reverence or contemplation. It's the silence of forced submission, of suppressed cries, of a terrible patience. Your gaze sweeps the room, noting the bareness of it, the stark, utilitarian cruelty. There are no tapestries, no comforting fire, no plush rugs. Only rough, cold stone. In the center of the room, a heavy wooden table dominates the space, scarred and dark with age. Its surface seems to absorb the faint light, a black hole of grim purpose. Near it, a crude, unadorned cross stands upright against the wall. It's a simple, rough-hewn piece of timber, devoid of any adornment or artistry, closer to the raw cross in your village square than the jeweled icons. But here, in this chamber, it doesn't inspire fear of divine judgment, but something far more immediate, far more human. You sense the presence of another figure in the room, obscured mostly by shadow, a silent, watchful observer. Their stillness is absolute. Their gaze, though unseen, a palpable weight on your skin. You feel a prickle on your neck, an instinctive tightening of your muscles, preparing for an unseen blow. The air grows heavier, compressing around you, making each breath feel shallow. The cross here is not a warning to be avoided, nor a symbol to be revered, nor a banner to be fought under. Here, it is an instrument, a tool of power. It represents not a divine truth, but a human one. The capacity for cruelty, for coercion, for the extraction of confession. The damp chill of the chamber seems to emanate from its very presence, from its purpose. The message is clear, undeniable, and utterly terrifying in its cold, practical application. It's chilling. How a simple, unadorned cross can be stripped of all spiritual meaning and transformed into a chilling emblem of human power and its capacity for deliberate, calculated pain. The cold, damp air in the Inquisitor's chamber presses in on you, a suffocating weight that seems to steal the oxygen from your lungs. You feel the tremor in your hands, a mix of the piercing chill and an escalating dread. The metallic scent still lingers, a faint but insistent presence, mingling with the mustiness of damp stone. The silence, profound and watchful, stretches taut, ready to snap. In the dim light, the dark shape of the Inquisitor slowly comes into focus. He sits behind the scarred wooden table, his face almost entirely obscured by the deep shadow of his cowl. Only his hands are clearly visible, resting calmly on the table, their fingers intertwined. You notice the heavy silver ring on his index finger, engraved with a small, unadorned cross, glinting dully in the weak lantern light. It's a cross of stark simplicity, yet it carries the weight of unquestionable authority, a symbol of absolute power. His voice, when it comes, is soft, almost conversational, a low murmur that barely disturbs the heavy air. He speaks not with anger, but with an unnerving, quiet conviction. He speaks of truth, of doctrine, of the absolute necessity of conformity. His words are carefully chosen, each syllable delivered with a chilling precision. He uses terms like salvation, purity, and purgao parisy. But in this stark chamber, under this oppressive silence, they sound less like spiritual guidance, and more like the cold, hard logic of a trap. You feel a growing tension in your jaw, an instinctive tightening of your muscles. The air seems to thicken around his words, making them feel like physical constraints, binding you, constricting your thoughts. He gestures slowly, deliberately, with one hand towards the simple wooden cross leaning against the wall. His movement is minimal, but the gesture holds immense power, drawing your gaze to the stark timber and to the implicit threat it represents. His quiet voice continues, building its careful, inescapable argument like a spider weaving an invisible web. He explains the sacredness of the cross, its absolute meaning, its demand for unquestioning faith. He talks of the suffering it entails not as a warning to those who wield power, but as a righteous path for those who stray. The raw agony you felt when carrying the beam, the terror etched into ancient catacomb walls, the impotence you saw in plague-ridden streets, all of it twisted, reinterpreted, repurposed by his calm, unyielding dogma. You feel the pressure building, a desperate urge to shout, to break the silence, to shatter the carefully constructed logic of his words. You see the cross now not as a symbol of divine love, but as an emblem of human control, a tool of righteous oppression, His voice is still quiet, unhurried, but you know what it portends. You can almost feel the scream gathering in your own throat, desperate to escape, to defy the cold, quiet certainty of his words, which precede and justify an inevitable, agonizing outburst. It's horrifying how the calm, quiet voice of dogma, speaking words of salvation and purity, can be wielded with such chilling precision, transforming a symbol of suffering into an instrument of terror, preparing the way for an inevitable, agonizing human cry. The squelch of wet mud greets your every step, a sucking, insistent sound that pulls at your boots. You feel the cold, heavy earth give way beneath your weight, a greasy, clinging sensation that seeps through the worn leather. The air is thick with the rich, earthy smell of disturbed soil, mingled with the faint, persistent odor of damp straw and animal dung. It's a familiar smell, a constant companion in this life. You are in a vast, open field, stretching endlessly under a gray, overcast sky. The ground is a uniform expanse of churned, dark brown mud, glistening wetly from recent rain. Your back aches with a dull, persistent throb, a familiar protest from hours of bending and pulling. Your hands are raw, calloused, and encrusted with dried mud, the sensation of grit, an inescapable part of your skin. You feel the constant drag of the heavy wooden plow in your hands, its rough handles chafing against your palms. Ahead of you, the slow, powerful movements of the oxen pull the plow with immense effort, their low grunts audible above the rhythmic squelch of your boots. Their breath plumes in the cool air, and you can smell their musky hide, their sheer brute strength a vital force in this back-breaking labor. You walk behind, guiding the blade, feeling the resistant pull of the earth as it turns over in thick, dark furrows. Other figures are scattered across the expansive field, hunched and tireless, tiny against the vast, bleak landscape. They move with the same resigned endurance, their heads bowed, their movements synchronized with the unyielding demands of the land. No one speaks. Only the sounds of effort, the groan of wood, the squelch of mud, the heavy breathing, fill the air. You perceive their shared exhaustion, the stoicism etched onto their mud-streaked faces, a silent acceptance of their lot. The cold, wet mud splatters onto your trousers, its dampness seeping through the coarse fabric. You feel the grit between your teeth, a persistent, earthy taste in your mouth. This isn't a pilgrimage, a feast, or a battle. This is the rhythm of survival, of basic existence, a relentless cycle tied to the earth. The cross, in all its varied forms, from brutal warning to jeweled symbol, from battle standard to inquisitor's tool, seems impossibly distant here. Here there are no abstract warnings, no opulent comforts, only the raw, demanding reality of the land. You glance up at the gray sky, a vast, indifferent expanse. The feel of the wet mud on your skin, its clinging weight, is the most immediate, most undeniable truth. It's a tangible connection to the ground that feeds you, but also demands every ounce of your strength, a constant, humbling reminder of your place in the world. It's a peculiar kind of clarity that comes from such raw physical labor, where the simple, inescapable sensation of mud on your hands and feet cuts through all grand narratives, leaving only the fundamental truth of effort and earth. The squelch of mud still pulls at your boots with each heavy step, a constant, sucking sound that seems to mock your efforts. Your shoulders ache. A dull, familiar fire from the endless labor of turning the earth. The air, cool and damp, carries the heavy scent of rich soil, animal musk, and the faint, ever-present tang of human sweat. You wipe a streak of mud from your brow, feeling the grit on your skin, a perpetual reminder of the ground that demands your every ounce of strength. Your gaze, heavy with weariness, lifts momentarily from the endless furrows. In the far distance, barely visible through the gray haze of the day, a town huddles, and rising above its cluster of buildings, impossibly tall, impossibly slender, is the spire of a grand cathedral. It pierces the overcast sky, a needle-thin finger reaching upwards, and on its very pinnacle, a tiny, almost imperceptible glint. A cross. From this distance, it's not the rough-hewn timber of your village, nor the jeweled extravagance of the bishop's robe, nor the stark, unadorned instrument of the inquisitor. It's a mere speck of metal, catching the faintest hint of light, a minuscule detail on an immense structure. You squint, trying to define its shape, but it's too far, too ethereal. It simply exists, a distant, silent declaration of something far removed from the physical reality pressing down on you. You feel the persistent drag of the plow, its handles rough and cold in your raw hands. The oxen ahead continue their slow, powerful work, oblivious to the distant spire, their focus entirely on the earth beneath their hooves. Other laborers around you keep their heads bowed, their backs bent, their attention fixed on the immediate task, on the wet mud and the demanding rhythm of survival. They don't look up. Their world is here, on the ground, in the struggle of the soil. The cross on that spire, so high above, seems to float in another realm entirely. It doesn't offer solace to your aching muscles. It doesn't lighten the weight of the mud. It doesn't offer a reprieve from the cold, damp air or the endless cycle of labor. It's an emblem of something grand and powerful, yes, but also profoundly unattainable. It speaks of a world of doctrine and dogma, of wealth and war, a world that seems to exist solely in the unreachable heights, utterly disconnected from the raw, gritty truth of your life in the field. The distant glint of that cross, so removed from the earth, underscores the immense chasm between the exalted symbols of belief and the relentless, undeniable demands of human existence. It's a reminder that some warnings, perhaps the most crucial ones, are lost not in mistranslation, but in the sheer, unbridgeable distance between worlds. A sharp, acrid smell of dried herbs, steeped in steaming water, fills the small, windowless room, mingling with the heavy scent of sweat and damp earth. You breathe it in, a potent, earthy aroma that seems to cling to the rough wool blanket draped over your shoulders. A low, guttural groan, deep with effort and pain, vibrates through the floorboards, making your stomach clench. You sit in the corner of a cramped cottage, the air thick and warm from a small, sputtering fire in the hearth. The dim light from a single tallow candle casts dancing shadows, making the rough-hewn walls seem to press in closer. Your eyes are fixed on the midwife, a wizened woman whose face is a roadmap of countless fears and triumphs. She moves with a focused intensity, her hands, gnarled and strong, working with a practiced rhythm. She murmurs, her voice a low, almost tuneless hum, words that sound ancient, older than the stone spire on the distant cathedral. You can't quite catch them all, but they speak of earth, of moon, of unseen forces. Her fingers, nimble despite their age, move to a small, worn pouch tied at her waist. From it, she pulls a gnarled piece of wood, no bigger than your thumb, carved crudely into an indistinct animal-like shape. It's a pagan charm, rough and unadorned, a relic of beliefs that run deeper than any sermon. She presses it gently against the forehead of the struggling woman, her thumb rubbing soft circles, a silent invocation. Then, almost seamlessly, her hand moves, performing a quick, precise sign of the cross over the woman's swollen belly. Her lips move again, this time whispering a Christian prayer, familiar words of supplication and divine mercy. The scent of the herbs, the earthy charm, and the murmured prayer all coalesce in the charged air. A desperate tapestry of protection woven from disparate threads. She wears a small, simple wooden crucifix around her neck, its smooth, worn surface a faint glint in the candlelight, an almost unconscious blend of two worlds. You feel the raw vulnerability of the moment, the thin veil between life and death. The midwife's eyes, though tired, hold a fierce, unwavering resolve. She doesn't rely on one belief, but on every possible recourse, every ancient wisdom, and every new faith, to navigate this primal passage. The rough wood of the charm, the simple cross, the potent herbs, each is a desperate attempt to influence forces far beyond human control, to find a saving grace where the world offers only struggle. The cross, in her hands, is not a symbol of abstract power or divine judgment. It's a tool, a prayer, another desperate grasp at hope in the face of an unpredictable, often cruel, reality. It's a powerful thing, witnessing how, in the crucible of life and death, ancient beliefs and new doctrines merge, revealing a fundamental human yearning for protection, a desperate grasp at any comfort against the overwhelming unknown. A different smell now permeates the small, hot room, the faint, metallic tang of fresh blood, quickly absorbed by the rough straw on the floor. It mingles with the potent aroma of herbs and the pervasive scent of fear. A new sound cuts through the air, sharp and clear. A baby's cry, tiny but fierce. A declaration of life that momentarily silences all other noise. A collective, shaky sigh of relief ripples through the small gathering in the cramped cottage. You watch the midwife, her face streaked with sweat and exhaustion, but her eyes alight with a fierce, almost primal joy. She holds the tiny, squalling bundle, her movements gentle, practiced, her ancient pagan charm still clutched in her other hand. She brings the infant close, murmuring soft, comforting words, a mixture of ancient lullabies and heartfelt thanks to unseen spirits. You feel the profound, undeniable presence of life, raw and fragile, utterly dependent on this woman's lived knowledge. Suddenly, the heavy wooden door of the cottage creaks open, letting in a blast of cold, damp air and a new presence. A priest stands there, his dark robes a stark contrast to the rough earthiness of the room. He carries a small, ornate crucifix of polished silver, glinting coldly in the dim candlelight. His face is solemn, almost stern, his gaze sweeping over the scene, an unspoken judgment in his eyes. The scent of incense, faint but distinct, clings to his garments, a sharp, contrasting aroma to the herbs and blood. He approaches, his footsteps deliberate on the packed earth floor. He doesn't offer congratulations or a smile. Instead, his voice, though low, is firm, a pronouncement of duty. He speaks of original sin, of baptism, of the child's need for divine grace. He holds the silver crucifix aloft, its polished surface reflecting the candlelight, a powerful symbol of his imposed doctrine. The midwife, still holding the infant, meets his gaze, her own eyes resolute, a silent defiance in her tired features. You feel the tension rise, thick and palpable, in the small room. It's not a clash of swords or a shout of anger, but a profound, silent struggle between two worlds, two systems of belief, both claiming authority over this new, fragile life. The midwife's worn pagan charm, still clutched in her hand, feels like a physical manifestation of the earth, of lived experience, of wisdom passed through generations. The priest's silver crucifix, held aloft, represents the towering, unyielding structure of official dogma, of salvation meticulously defined. The baby's cries subside into soft whimpers, a fragile sound caught between these two powerful, competing forces. The cross, in the priest's hand, isn't a warning against power. It's power, wielded with a quiet, unyielding authority, attempting to define and control even in the most intimate, sacred moment of birth. But the midwife's gaze, rooted in the earth, speaks of a different truth, a deeper, older wisdom that cannot be easily subsumed by shining silver or official pronouncements. It's astonishing how, in the moment of a new life's arrival, the profound weight of human belief systems can collide, revealing the stark, undeniable difference between a lived, organic faith and a rigidly imposed doctrine. A guttural roar erupts, a raw, animalistic sound that crashes over you, stealing the air from your lungs. It's not the unified battle cry of an army, but a fragmented, chaotic clamor of thousands of individual voices surging and receding like a violent tide. You feel the tremor of it in your teeth, a physical vibration that threatens to shatter your composure. The air is thick, not just with sound, but with the acrid, choking smell of burning wood, mingled with the pungent odors of unwashed bodies and fervent emotion. You are pressed into a dense, seething crowd, your feet sinking into the muddy ground of a vast, open square. Every direction is a wall of humanity, pushing and shoving, a restless, dangerous energy pulsing through the mass. You feel the rough wool of cloaks rubbing against you, the accidental brush of elbows, the clammy heat of too many bodies packed too close. Your breath comes in shallow gasps, the smoke stinging your eyes and catching in your throat. Ahead, towering above the sea of heads, a pyre rises, a skeletal structure of stacked timber. Flames lick greedily at its base, consuming the wood with a hungry crackle that somehow cuts through the roar of the crowd. Smoke billows upwards, dark and choking, carrying that sickening smell of burning timber, its density momentarily obscuring the grim scene. You squint, trying to see through the haze, your stomach twisting with a cold dread. The roar of the crowd shifts, rising and falling in waves. It's a sound of both fury and perverse excitement, a collective release of tension and an undeniable thirst for spectacle. You catch glimpses of faces in the flickering, smoky light, contorted, avid, some wide with fear, others twisted into expressions of grim satisfaction. Their eyes, though, are universally fixed on the rising flames, their shared focus creating a chilling, unified energy. You feel a jostle, a sudden push from behind, throwing you forward slightly. You stumble, catching your balance, your heart thudding against your ribs. The heat from the pyre radiates outwards, a dry, oppressive warmth that competes with the cold dampness of the mud beneath your feet. The roar intensifies, a deafening crescendo, as the flames climb higher, devouring the stacked timber with furious speed. In the midst of the burning, a shape emerges, dark and unmistakable against the fiery backdrop. A cross. Not a constructed cross, but a natural, almost accidental cruciform, formed by the burning timbers themselves, outlined in furious orange and red. It's not adorned, not symbolic, but a raw, terrifying warning, made visceral and explicit by the consuming flames. It's not meant to save, it's meant to burn. And the roar of the crowd, fueled by fear and righteousness, drowns out any other possible message, any plea, any doubt. The cross in this moment is not an object of worship, but an instrument of destruction, its purpose horrifyingly clear. It's terrifying how the collective human voice, fueled by fear and fervor, can become a weapon, drowning out all reason, turning a scene of absolute horror into a perverse, unifying spectacle. The roar of the crowd is a physical presence, a monstrous wave of sound that batters your ears and rattles your very bones. It's a terrifying, exultant clamor, thick with fury and a perverse sense of righteous purpose. The air is dense, acrid with the choking smell of burning wood and the metallic tang of fear, clinging to your throat and stinging your eyes. Heat radiates outwards from the towering pyre, an oppressive, suffocating blanket that makes your skin prickle. You are pushed forward by the surging mass of bodies, your feet stumbling in the mud. Ahead, the flames consume the stacked timber with horrifying speed, licking upwards, reaching towards the gray, smoke-filled sky. You squint through the haze, your gaze fixed on the pyre, your stomach churning with a cold, desperate sickness. Then, through a momentary parting in the smoke, you see him, a figure, bound and helpless, silhouetted against the inferno. His head is bowed, his body already racked with the heat and the smoke. You catch a glimpse of his face, contorted not just in pain, but in a profound, desolate despair. His eyes, wide with a final, terrible understanding, search the crowd, perhaps for a flicker of mercy, a sign of recognition, anything but the sea of fervent, unforgiving faces. And then, just as the flames begin to engulf him, a hand from the crowd thrusts upwards, holding aloft a large, unadorned wooden cross. It's raw, simple, much like the one you saw erected in the village square, or the crude instrument in the Inquisitor's chamber. But now it is held high, not as a symbol of comfort, nor of a distant jeweled god, but as a final, damning judgment. It is positioned directly in his line of sight, a terrifying, inescapable last image. You perceive the stark, brutal irony of it. The cross, meant to be a warning against the terrible cost of imperial power, against the suffering of the innocent, is now wielded as the ultimate weapon of that very power, a final, unyielding symbol of condemnation. Its message of caution has been utterly obliterated, replaced by a terrifying assertion of control, of righteousness enforced through fire and fear. The upraised cross, meant to be his salvation, is his ultimate torment, his last agonizing vision. The roar of the crowd surges to a fever pitch, drowning out any sound he might make, consuming his last moments in a terrifying crescendo of human fervor. The smell of burning wood becomes even more intense, sickeningly sweet, as the pyre fully engulfs its victim. And the cross, held high, a dark silhouette against the consuming flames, is no longer a symbol of redemption. It is the ultimate expression of human cruelty, sanctioned and celebrated. A warning that has been profoundly, tragically, and violently misread. It's an unbearable weight, The realization that a symbol meant to warn against the ultimate suffering can be so twisted, so weaponized, that it becomes the very instrument of that suffering, a final, damning sight for the condemned. A faint, dry smell of dust and old linen fills the air, mingling with the heavy scent of beeswax candles and the metallic tang of polished silver. You breathe it in, a strange, almost ethereal aroma that seems to speak of antiquity and hushed reverence. The air is cool, still, carrying the low murmur of whispered prayers from the crowd around you. You are pushed forward by a slow, relentless current of bodies, a dense mass of pilgrims inching their way through a dimly lit reliquary. The space is narrow, claustrophobic, the walls lined with small glass-fronted cabinets. Within each, shrouded in velvet and gold, are fragments, slivers of wood, faded cloths, tiny, indistinct bones. Each relic draws desperate, hopeful eyes, each one a tangible link to a sacred past, a potential source of miracles. You feel the press of the person behind you, their fervent energy almost contagious. Your gaze is drawn to the front of the line, to a small, raised altar. There, presented on a cushion of deep purple velvet, lies a reliquary of exquisite craftsmanship. It's fashioned from shining silver, intricately filigreed, shaped like a miniature cross. And within its glass-paneled center, a tiny fragment rests, a bone, no bigger than your finger. It's yellowed with age, smooth and ancient, undeniably human. A saint's bone, they say. You feel a surge of complicated emotions, awe, a touch of skepticism, and a profound sense of human desperation. As the line moves, you inch closer, your hand extended, following the example of those before you. Your fingertips brush the cold, smooth glass of the reliquary. And then, a moment later, in an act that feels both forbidden and sacred, you are allowed a fleeting direct touch. Your bare finger makes contact with the bone itself, through a small, exposed opening in the silver casing. It's surprisingly dry, chalky, utterly inert. No warmth. No electric jolt, no immediate sense of profound grace. Just the cool, dry sensation of ancient bone against your skin. You feel the texture, the slight roughness, the unmistakable impression of something that was once part of a living being, now reduced to this venerated fragment. The air around it, though still, feels heavy with the collective belief of centuries, the accumulated hopes and fears of countless pilgrims. The cross, in this context, is not a warning against the dangers of power or suffering. It's a container, a vessel for a fragment of the past, imbued with an almost magical power through belief. It's a conduit, a piece of a larger, comforting narrative, promising healing, intercession, a tangible link to the divine. The terror of the original cross is softened, almost entirely forgotten, in this fervent pursuit of miraculous touch. This mania for relics, this desperate need for tangible proof, transforms the cross into a tool of personal salvation, a key to unlock divine intervention. It's humbling how human desperation for solace can transform the smallest, most inert fragment of the past into an object of profound power, reshaping even the most brutal symbols into conduits of hope and miraculous healing. The lingering scent of beeswax and ancient dust still hangs heavy in the close air of the reliquary, mixing now with the subtle, metallic tang of countless coins. You breathe it in, a dry, almost dusty aroma that speaks of endless transactions and fervent hopes. The murmur of whispered prayers around you is a low, continuous drone, punctuated by the soft clink of metal against wood, a rhythm of quiet, desperate exchange. You are still part of the slow-moving line, inching forward towards the small, revered altars, your hand still tingling faintly from the dry touch of the saint's bone, reaches into your worn pouch. Your fingers close around a small, smooth coin, its weight familiar and comforting, yet now imbued with a new, heavier significance. You feel the rough thread of the pouch against your skin, a reminder of the meager resources you carry. Ahead, a robed monk stands by a velvet-lined offering box, his face impassive, his eyes scanning the faces of those who approach. He holds a small, polished wooden cross in his hand, its surface smooth from countless touches, its form simple and unadorned. It's not a dramatic crucifix, not jeweled, not a weapon, but in this context, it feels like a silent witness to a bargain being struck. You feel the collective gaze of those behind you, their silent impatience, their shared desperation. As you reach the front, your eyes meet the monk's briefly. There's no judgment in his gaze, only a practiced, weary acceptance. You place your coin into the offering box, hearing the soft clink as it joins others. It's a small sound, but it carries the weight of a monumental hope, a silent plea for intercession, for protection, for a miracle that money, or at least a token of it, is meant to buy. You whisper your own petition, your voice dry and thin in the heavy air. You perceive the subtle shift in the atmosphere as each person makes their offering. There's a tangible sense of release, a momentary lightening of burdens, as if the very act of giving has in itself paid a debt or secured a promise. You see the faces around you, etched with a mixture of profound hope and quiet resignation. They are offering what they have, not out of spontaneous generosity, but out of a desperate, transactional faith, believing that this exchange will tip the scales in their favor. The cross, held by the monk, becomes a kind of receipt, a silent confirmation of the deal. It isn't a warning against the dangers of earthly power or the fleeting nature of life. Instead, it's integrated into the mechanism of spiritual commerce, a symbol in a silent bargain for divine favor. The original, brutal message of suffering and consequence seems utterly dissolved in this air thick with offerings and whispered petitions, where faith has transformed into a measurable transaction. It's a peculiar kind of quiet terror, realizing that the very symbols meant to embody selfless love and sacrifice can be so profoundly commodified, turning desperate faith into a transaction for miracles where the gravest warnings become merely a part of the price. The sharp, metallic tang of newly cut stone fills the air, mingling with the dry, powdery scent of limestone dust. You breathe it in, a clean, almost sterile aroma that speaks of painstaking labor and fresh creation. A rhythmic chink-chink-chink of hammer on chisel echoes through the vast open space. A persistent, almost hypnotic sound that vibrates through the very ground beneath your feet. You stand on a scaffolding, high above the nave of a cathedral still under construction. The air is cool, carrying a subtle draft from the unfinished walls and soaring archways. Below you, tiny figures move like ants, hauling stone, mixing mortar. Around you, the vast scale of the structure is breathtaking. Immense pillars rising to impossible heights, intricate carvings taking shape in the pale stone. You feel the rough, splintered wood of the scaffolding planks beneath your boots, a precarious perch amidst this colossal undertaking. Your gaze is drawn to the stone mason working beside you. His face is grimy with dust, streaked with sweat, his brow furrowed in intense concentration. His hands, gnarled and powerful, wield the hammer and chisel with a practiced, almost artistic grace. He works on a large, smooth block of limestone, painstakingly shaping it, chipping away tiny fragments that ping off the stone with a bright, sharp sound. He doesn't speak, his focus absolute, his world contained within the precise blows of his tools. He turns the stone slightly, and you catch a glimpse of something etched into its underside, a small, almost imperceptible mark. It's not a decorative flourish, not a religious symbol, but a simple geometric design, almost like a stylized letter or a small, unique symbol. It's his mark, his signature, hidden from casual view but essential for accounting and recognition among his guild. It's a secret, personal stamp on a piece of stone that will soon be mortared into the towering walls of God's house. You perceive the profound pride and quiet ownership in that hidden mark. It's a subtle rebellion against the anonymity of labor, a personal claim on a monumental, collective effort. This isn't the cross of imperial power or an abstract dogma. It's a mark of the craftsman, of the individual's contribution. The cross in this context is the grand, overarching design, the spiritual framework. But within that framework, the small, secret mark represents human ingenuity, individual skill, and a quiet assertion of self. It's a warning, perhaps, against losing oneself entirely in the grand narrative, a reminder of the value of the individual hand that builds. The constant chink-chink-chink of the chisel continues, a testament to the slow, relentless shaping of stone, a sound that speaks of both dedication and the quiet, enduring spirit of human craft. It's remarkable how in the heart of a monumental, sacred project, the smallest, most hidden mark can carry such a powerful, personal statement, a quiet assertion of individuality against the overwhelming grandeur of collective faith. The dry, powdery scent of limestone dust still hangs in the air, a constant reminder of the ongoing construction. You hear the ceaseless, rhythmic chink-chink-chink of hammer on chisel, a background hum that fills the vast, echoing space of the unfinished cathedral. You feel the grit of stone dust on your clothes, even on your tongue, a tangible connection to the monumental effort surrounding you. You move carefully along the scaffolding, your boots finding purchase on the rough planks, high above the nave. Below, the intricate patterns of the floor begin to take shape, a dizzying display of geometric precision. Above you, the vaulted ceilings arc towards an unseen apex, a symphony of arches and ribs that stretch towards the heavens. Everything here speaks of order, of divine proportion, of a human aspiration towards perfection. Your gaze, however, is drawn to a small, almost hidden detail on a freshly carved capital high on a pillar. It's a tiny imperfection, a slight misalignment in a spiraling leaf motif, a chip in the delicate curl of a carved tendril, barely noticeable, perhaps even intentional to the casual eye, but to your more attentive observation, it reveals itself as a subtle, undeniable deviation from the intended flawless symmetry. It's a human flaw, a momentary lapse in precision, preserved forever in the cold, hard stone. You touch the cool, smooth surface of the pillar nearby, feeling its unyielding solidity. This entire structure, designed to elevate the spirit and inspire awe, is a testament to meticulous planning and dedicated craftsmanship. Yet, this tiny flaw, this almost invisible imperfection, stands as a quiet counterpoint to all that grandeur. It's a reminder of the human hands that built this house of God, The tired eyes, the aching backs, the momentary slips of concentration. The cross, in its many forms throughout this building, carved into stone, painted on glass, perhaps even one day a jeweled altarpiece, speaks of a divine perfection, a grand, unwavering truth. But this tiny hidden flaw whispers a different story. It's a subtle warning, etched into the very fabric of the sacred space, that even in the pursuit of divine perfection, human imperfection is always present, an undeniable, indelible mark. It suggests that perhaps true divinity, true wisdom, lies not in flawless execution, but in the acceptance of our inherent human fallibility. The chink, chink, chink continues, shaping stone into what will appear perfect. But you know now that within that perfection, a quiet human truth always persists, a small, enduring testament to the hands that wrought it. It's a profound realization that even in the grandest gestures of faith and architectural ambition, the subtle, enduring mark of human imperfection serves as a powerful, unspoken truth, reminding us of the fallibility inherent in every creation. A deafening crash rips through the air, so sudden and violent that it makes you jump, your heart leaping into your throat. It's followed by a sickening, prolonged shower of tinkling, splintering sounds, like 1,000 tiny bells breaking, cascading around you. The air instantly fills with a sharp, metallic smell of disturbed dust, mingled with the faint, sweet scent of old stone, and something else, a fleeting, almost electric tang of raw destruction. You are inside a grand, ancient cathedral, but it is no longer the place of hushed reverence you once knew. The air is thick with rising dust, illuminated by shafts of raw, unfiltered sunlight streaming in from newly formed gaps. Cold drafts now sweep through the nave, carrying the chill of the outside world directly into the hallowed space. You feel the grit of shattered glass crunching under your boots, tiny, sharp fragments pressing into the worn leather. Your gaze shoots upwards, towards the source of the terrible sound, where once a magnificent stained glass window had stood, a vibrant tapestry of saints and stories. Now there is a gaping, jagged hole. The intricate leadwork is twisted and torn like ripped lace, and only scattered shards of colored glass cling precariously to the edges, catching the light in a desperate final sparkle. Below, on the stone floor, a chaotic mosaic of broken color lies scattered, glittering like fallen jewels. Around you, other figures move with a stunned, bewildered slowness. Their faces are pale, eyes wide with a mixture of shock and incomprehension. Some stand frozen, mouths agape, unable to process the sudden violation. Others cautiously approach the debris, their movements hesitant, as if stepping into a newly revealed chasm. You hear a low moan from somewhere nearby, a sound of profound loss and despair. You reach out, your fingers trembling slightly, and pick up a small piece of the broken glass. It's cold, sharp, and surprisingly heavy in your palm, its once vibrant color now fragmented, meaningless. This isn't the filtered, controlled light that once painted the nave in hues of grace. This is raw, unfiltered reality, tearing through the carefully constructed narratives of faith. The cross, which once adorned that now shattered window, depicted in serene glory, is gone, obliterated by the force of the impact. Its abstract beauty, its jeweled splendor, its quiet lessons, all are swept away in this moment of brutal, visceral destruction. The sound of shattering stained glass isn't just the breaking of glass. It's the fracturing of an entire worldview, a violent tearing away of the comforting illusions that once illuminated the meaning of the cross. It's terrifying how a single, deafening crash can not only shatter glass but also rip apart the carefully woven fabric of belief, exposing the raw, cold reality beneath its shimmering surface. The acrid smell of fresh lime wash now dominates the air, mingling with the pervasive scent of damp stone and the faint, unsettling tang of destruction. You breathe it in, a clean, almost sterile aroma that seems to strip the very memory of incense and old reverence from the vast, echoing space. The tinkling cascade of shattering glass from moments before has ceased, replaced by a stark, almost surgical silence. You stand in the nave of the cathedral, but it is utterly transformed. The vibrant tapestry of filtered light that once painted the stone in jewel tones is gone, replaced by harsh, unyielding daylight pouring in through the jagged, broken windows. The walls, once adorned with painted murals and intricate hangings, are now a uniform expanse of stark, unforgiving white. Every trace of color, every rich detail, every comforting embellishment has been meticulously stripped away, leaving only the bare, cold stone beneath a fresh, pale coat of wash. The floor, swept clean of glass, feels vast and empty under your worn boots. Your gaze is drawn to the place where the main altar once stood, a focal point of gold and glory. Now it too is stark, cleared of all its previous opulence, and upon it, or perhaps hanging against the newly whitewashed wall behind it, stands a cross. It's not the monumental, raw timber of your village, nor the jeweled extravagance of the bishop's robes. It's a plain, unadorned wooden cross, perhaps a simple crucifix, its surface smoothed by time but entirely lacking in ornamentation. No figure hangs upon it, no intricate carvings adorn its arms, no precious metals glint from its edges. It is simply wood, stark and elemental against the bleached white of the wall. You feel the chill of the now exposed stone, the pervasive cold that no longer offers solace but a harsh, unwavering truth. The air feels thinner, sharper, devoid of the perfumed layers that once softened its bite. Other figures in the nave, dressed in plain, unadorned garments, move with a quiet, purposeful solemnity. Their faces are serious, their eyes fixed not on the cross with awe or fear, but with a kind of resolute, almost severe understanding. They don't kneel with the fervent desperation of the pilgrims, nor do they look upon it with the casual comfort of the bishop. This stripped bare cross, devoid of all glitter and glory, is a radical reinterpretation. It's a harsh reminder of its origins and suffering and stark consequence, yet also a symbol of a purified, uncompromising faith. It no longer aims to save through grandeur or transaction, but to stand as a stark, unvarnished truth. The silence in the cathedral isn't reverent, it's austere, a deliberate vacuum reflecting the removal of all superfluous comfort. The cross, in this new, stark form, feels less like a promise and more like a hard-won, unyielding demand for a different kind of understanding, a bare, essential warning stripped to its core. It's a chilling clarity, witnessing how the deliberate removal of all adornment from a symbol can, paradoxically, make its underlying brutal truth resonate with a new, uncompromising force. A faint, almost imperceptible smell of polished wood and old paper fills the air, mingling with the dry, controlled coolness of the room. It's a sterile aroma, utterly devoid of the damp earth, burning wood, or liturgical incense you've come to know. You breathe it in, a clean, unchallenging scent that feels designed to keep everything at a polite, academic distance. You walk on a smooth, hushed floor, your footsteps barely audible in the profound quiet of the museum hall. The light is soft, diffuse, emanating from hidden sources, carefully curated to protect the artifacts and to avoid harsh shadows. The air is still, unmoving, maintaining a constant, deliberate temperature. This is a place of preservation, of careful display, of objects removed from their original, messy contexts. Your gaze sweeps across the meticulously arranged exhibits. You see fragments of ancient pottery, faded tapestries behind glass, intricately carved wooden tools, all bathed in this soft, uniform light. Each item is accompanied by a small, precisely printed label, offering a brief, factual description. There's no raw emotion here, no desperate prayers, no fearful gasps. Only quiet contemplation, the occasional murmur of a voice, hushed and respectful. You feel the polished rail of a barrier beneath your fingers, separating you from a display, a subtle boundary enforcing distance and non-interaction. The weight of history is present, yes, but it's curated, cataloged, presented as a series of facts and dates, not as a lived, visceral experience. You notice the respectful, almost detached curiosity in the faces of other visitors as they drift from one exhibit to another. They look, they read, they nod, but their expressions betray little of the profound fear, joy, or desperation that these objects once inspired. Your eyes eventually fall upon an exhibit dedicated to religious symbols. Behind thick, gleaming glass, perfectly spotlit, lies a collection of crosses. There's a miniature, jeweled cross, like the one worn by the bishop, its gems sparkling under the controlled light. Beside it, a simple, unadorned wooden cross, perhaps a replica of the Reformation era, its starkness presented as an aesthetic choice. And further along, a photograph, crisp and clear, of the massive, raw timbers of the cross from your village, now an archived image, its terrifying initial impact reduced to an anthropological detail. You perceive the profound irony of these objects, once imbued with such immense power, to inspire terror, to rally armies, to offer salvation, to condemn to fire, now laid out, clean and safe, behind glass. The cross here is a specimen, an object of study, a testament to human history and belief systems, rather than a living, potent force. The sterile quiet of the museum hall has effectively defanged it, transforming its warning into an interesting historical footnote, a piece of cultural heritage. It's unnerving how the very act of preserving and displaying history can strip away its visceral power, turning potent warnings and profound experiences into safely observed, sterile abstractions. The faint, dry scent of polished wood and dust still permeates the air, a cool, controlled aroma that seems to filter out all raw emotion. You hear the soft shuffle of other visitors, feet on the quiet floor, their hushed whispers absorbed by the sterile calm of the museum hall. The diffused light, carefully angled, washes over everything with an even, academic glow, leaving no space for dramatic shadows or fervent mystery. You stand before the display, a collection of crosses presented behind thick, unblemished glass. Your gaze settles on a particular one, A simple, unadorned wooden crucifix, its surface smoothed by centuries, but lacking any of the elaborate adornment or visceral agony of the other representations you've encountered. It's presented with pristine cleanliness, a relic removed from all grime and passion. It feels quiet, too quiet. Below it, mounted on the wall, is a small rectangular placard. Its white surface is crisp, the black typeface perfectly uniform, a beacon of factual information in this hushed space. You lean closer, feeling the cool air of the display case on your face, and begin to read. The text is concise, scholarly, describing the artifact's probable origin, its historical period, its materials. It details the symbolic significance of the cross, mentioning its cultural evolution and its role in various societal structures. It even notes the iconographic shifts over time. You perceive the words as a thin, transparent veil drawn over the object. The placard explains. It categorizes. It analyzes. It frames the cross not as a living, potent force, but as an item of historical interest, a subject for detached study. The raw terror of the hammer blows in the medieval square, the stifling fear in the plague-ridden streets, the fervent battle cries of the Crusaders, the quiet voice of dogma in the Inquisitor's chamber. All those visceral experiences are reduced to bullet points, to academic phrases, to mere data points in a timeline. You glance from the text back to the cross itself. It's still just wood, simple and unyielding, but now its power feels muted, diffused by the very act of explanation. The placard, in its relentless pursuit of objective description, strips away the fear, the hope, the righteous fury, the despair. It turns a symbol that once demanded visceral engagement into a static exhibit, a piece of ancient technology whose function is now merely to inform. The weight of centuries, once a burden, is now just a label. A soft cough from a nearby visitor barely registers. The silence here is not the oppressive quiet of state terror or sacred reverence, but the neutral, impersonal quiet of observation. You realize that the placard, with its carefully constructed narrative, is the ultimate reinterpretation. It doesn't transform the cross into something beautiful or terrifying. It transforms it into something known, something contained, something inert. Its most crucial warning, its call to remember suffering and humility, is smoothed over, polished away, muted by a precise, academic prose. It's a chilling thought, how easily the profound, lived experiences attached to a powerful symbol can be sterilized, categorized, and ultimately disarmed by the dispassionate, objective language of historical preservation. A low, insistent hum vibrates in the air, a restless, expectant sound that slowly builds into a roar. It's a collective human energy, a palpable buzz of anticipation. The air around you is thick with the smell of cheap perfume, hot asphalt, and the metallic tang of excitement, almost like electricity. You breathe it in, a heady, slightly disorienting mixture that feels charged with unseen currents. You are standing in a vast, open plaza, packed shoulder to shoulder with a sea of people. Bright artificial lights glare down from towering poles, cutting through the twilight, bathing everything in an almost clinical glow. Speakers blare, their voices amplified, distorted, echoing off distant buildings, creating a cacophony of rhetoric and cheers. You feel the press of bodies around you, the subtle swaying of the crowd, a sense of collective movement. Your feet ache from standing on the hard pavement, but the energy of the multitude is a strange, invigorating force. Your gaze sweeps across the faces around you. They are animated, fervent, some beaming with almost ecstatic joy, others grim with a fierce, unyielding conviction. They hold aloft homemade signs, flags, and banners, a riot of color and slogans that flutter in the evening breeze. You feel a familiar, almost primal surge of belonging, a sense of being part of something larger than yourself, but also a prickle of unease at the sheer intensity of the emotion. And then you see it. High above the crowd, bobbing and swaying amongst the flags and signs, are crosses. Not the rough timber of the past, nor the jeweled icons, nor the stark, whitewashed simplicity of the Reformation. These are mass-produced, made of plastic or thin wood, some emblazoned with patriotic colors, others simply white against a dark background. They are clutched in hands, tied to poles, worn as necklaces. They are everywhere, countless echoes of the ancient symbol. You watch a man near you, his face flushed with passion, wave a small plastic cross attached to a stick. He doesn't look at it with reverence or fear. He waves it like a flag, a banner of his political allegiance, his identity. His voice, hoarse from shouting, joins the swelling roar of the crowd, a sound of unified purpose, of a shared fight. The cross, in his hand, is a statement, a declaration, a symbol of who he is and what he stands for. You realize that here, the cross has become something else entirely. A political token, a badge of identity, a visual shorthand for a specific ideology. Its original warning against power, its call to humility and suffering, has been utterly subsumed by the clamor of the rally, reinterpreted as a symbol of cultural and political dominance. It's an emblem of belonging, but also a silent line drawn in the sand, separating isen kanim us from them. The sound of the crowd, a powerful unifying force, drowns out any other possible message, any nuance, any historical context. The cross, once a warning, is now a powerful and often polarizing political identifier. It's chilling how a symbol meant to transcend earthly divisions can be so fiercely co-opted and weaponized, losing its profound, universal message in the specific, fervent roar of political tribalism. The cacophony of the rally still rings in your ears, a fading echo of the amplified voices and the fervent roar of the crowd. You feel a subtle throbbing in your temples, a lingering physical sensation from the sheer volume and intensity of the gathering. The smell of hot asphalt and massed bodies gradually recedes, replaced by the cooler, cleaner air of the city night, though a faint, metallic tang of an almost indefinable tension seems to linger. You walk away from the fading lights of the plaza, making your way through quieter streets. The noise and energy of the rally have given way to a different kind of silence, one that feels watchful, expectant. Your gaze falls on a series of historical markers embedded in the pavement, simple bronze plaques commemorating events from centuries past. Each one, a small, unassuming circle, tells a story of conflict, of struggle, of victories hard won, and defeats deeply felt. You stop before one such marker, bending slightly to read the etched words. It speaks of a local uprising, a fierce battle for land or ideology, a moment when one group asserted its will over another with brutal force. And there, subtly incorporated into the decorative border of the plaque, is a small, stylized cross. It's not the focal point, not the main message, but a persistent, almost subliminal presence. It exists not as a symbol of peace or reconciliation, but as an inherited scar, a quiet testament to a violence that was, at the time, considered redemptive. You feel a chill, distinct from the night air, spread through you. The stories on these plaques are not just history. They are the inherited memories of a society, the foundations upon which present-day convictions are built. The cross here has been fully absorbed into the narrative of historical conflict, a silent endorsement of past struggles, a justification for the battles fought, the bloodshed, the lives taken in its name. It's a reminder that violence, when cloaked in the mantle of righteousness, can be sanctified, even celebrated, its brutal cost reinterpreted as a necessary sacrifice. You touch the cold, smooth bronze of the plaque, feeling the raised edges of the etched cross. It's no longer a warning against power. It's an affirmation of power, a quiet, almost invisible thread connecting centuries of conflict, a testament to the enduring human capacity to find divine sanction for aggression. The clamor of the modern rally, with its own crosses and fervent cries, feels like a direct echo of these ancient, inherited scars, perpetuating a cycle of what is believed to be redemptive violence. It's a chilling, profound realization that the very symbol meant to highlight suffering can become so deeply embedded in narratives of conflict and conquest that it silently endorses violence, transforming its original warning into an inherited justification for future battles. The air carries a distinct scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, a cold autumnal aroma that bites at your exposed skin. A thin, insistent wind whispers through the branches of skeletal trees, a mournful, drawn-out sound that seems to carry 1,000 forgotten stories. But beneath that, a deeper, more specific sound emerges. A low, persistent creak. Creak, creak, creak. It's the sound of old wood, stressed and groaning, yielding to an unseen force. You are walking on a neglected path, winding through a desolate, windswept field. The ground beneath your worn boots is uneven, littered with dry, brittle weeds that crackle underfoot. The sky above is a uniform, heavy gray, threatening rain or snow, and casting a somber, muted light over the landscape. You feel the chill seep into your bones, a pervasive cold that no amount of clothing seems able to fully ward off. Your gaze is drawn to a rise in the land, a small, lonely hill that seems to absorb all light and warmth. And there, stark and solitary against the gray sky, stands an ancient, weathered wooden cross. It's tall, imposing, but its timbers are bleached gray by sun and rain, scarred by countless winters. The wood is gnarled, twisted, bearing the unmistakable marks of decay and enduring hardship. It's not new, not polished, not jeweled, not freshly painted. It's simply old, very old. And it's from this cross that the creaking sound emanates. The wind, though not violent, finds purchase in its ancient timbers, making the heavy wood groan and strain with each gust. It's a slow, deliberate sound, a lament of age and exposure, of enduring what the elements throw at it. You hear the deep, resonant protests of the wood, a living sound that speaks of its long, unbroken vigil on this desolate hill. You feel a profound sense of isolation, a stark contrast to the crowds of rallies or the hushed reverence of cathedrals. Here there are no other figures, no pilgrims, no priests, no soldiers, only you, the wind, and the creaking cross. It stands as a solitary sentinel, an unmoving witness to centuries of forgotten moments, its purpose now stripped bare of all human interpretation. The wind whips past your ears, cold and mournful, carrying the plaintive creak of the wood as a constant, inescapable sound. The cross in this form offers no salvation, no condemnation, no political allegiance. It simply is. It stands as an emblem of sheer endurance, of raw survival against the relentless passage of time and the indifferent forces of nature. Its creaking is a warning, perhaps, not of divine wrath or human cruelty, but of the inevitable wear and tear that time inflicts on all things, even symbols, stripping them down to their most fundamental, weathered essence. It's sobering how the simple, enduring creak of old wood in the wind can resonate with a profound, almost timeless message, speaking of endurance, decay, and the relentless, indifferent march of time over all things. The chill of the wind bites at your face, carrying the earthy scent of damp soil and decaying leaves. The persistent creak of the old wooden cross, straining against the unseen force of the breeze, fills the desolate air with its mournful, rhythmic protest. You stand alone on the wind-swept hill, the heavy gray sky pressing down, a vast, indifferent witness to the ancient timber before you. You reach out your hand, hesitantly, and place your palm flat against the weathered wood. It's rough, splintered, cold beneath your touch. A profound connection to the raw material. You feel the deep grooves carved by centuries of rain and wind, the subtle warp of the grain, the unyielding density of the aged timber. This is not the smooth, polished surface of a cathedral pillar, nor the glittering cold of a jeweled icon, nor the sterile detachment of a museum artifact. This is primal, unadorned wood, enduring. As your fingers trace its outline, a new understanding dawns on you, sharp and clear, cutting through the confusion of all the interpretations you've witnessed. You don't see salvation, you don't see glory, you don't see comfort or power or transaction. You see a stark, brutal instrument, a crude display of state-sanctioned torture. The rough wood whispers of the agony of a body stretched taut, of the slow, excruciating suffocation, of the ultimate violation of human dignity. The cross was never meant to save. It was meant to terrorize. It was erected on hillsides and alongside roads precisely to be seen, to be understood by all who passed. It was a stark, undeniable warning against rebellion, against defying imperial authority, against challenging the established order. Its message was simple, terrifying, and utterly unambiguous. This is what happens to those who resist. The wind whips around you, and the cross creaks again, a deep, resonant groan that now feels less like a lament and more like a visceral memory. It's a sound that strips away centuries of intricate theology, of sacred art, of political appropriation. It reveals the primal, chilling truth. The power wasn't in its divine purpose, but in its brutal, visible consequence. We made it into a symbol of salvation, a beacon of hope, but its original purpose was far grimmer, a warning we simply chose to misread, to transform, to soften into something more palatable. You feel a profound sense of clarity, a cold, hard understanding that resonates deep in your bones. The cross, in its rawest form, always screamed its truth. It's just that we learn to hear other things. It's a chilling realization. How a symbol of ultimate suffering, meant as a stark warning against oppressive power, could be so thoroughly reinterpreted, generation after generation, until its true, brutal message was almost entirely forgotten, replaced by comfort and hope.